Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is dead.
And we're going to discuss 5 ways to break your D&D game.
Jump in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so 5 ways to break your D&D game. We're going into it right now. We have a list. We wrote shit down. We're getting all professional like it here at Nerdarchy. So we're just gonna list them, and we'll go back to the list and talk about them a little bit. And if you like this video, let us know in the comments below, because maybe we'll turn it into a series.
All right. So first and foremost, we have the helicopter GM.
Yes, helicopter GMing. Second, we have players just want to have fun.
Yes. Then we have wandering monster syndrome.
And let's not forget the players entering the Thunderdome Madness.
And then we have the game Extremist. Let's start right from the top. We'll go with helicopter GMing.
Right. So helicopter GMing is when a GM is very controlling, or going crazy, and it could be over the entire party, or it could be like over a single player, and it could be their guiding actions. It could be allowing things into the game that players just shouldn't have or shouldn't want to do. What other kind of...
Sometimes, game breaking things. They want to control your character and make your character in their vision. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things we've seen over the years. We've seen favoritism where, Nate was bringing this up earlier.
Oh yeah, where someone wanted to be like a half dragon, whatever, and it was like, oh well, I mean, it's different editions. There's different stuff going on with different levels and stuff, but mainly, right now in 5e, you can't just bring a half dragon in and be like, all right, he's in the party, and everyone else can't play a half dragon because they didn't ask, or he's like your buddy, and you're like, oh, it's cool for him to play half dragon. I know he'll play it right.
The special one player, or the one player gets to start with an artifact. We've seen it in our game where someone has completely changed the class and race of a particular character because they felt that it needed to be into the game, so they made that happen.
Right.
It could be an NPC that shows up and guides the party, the Gandalf, the Fizban, any of those characters that kind of just take control of everything.
Right.
And then the players almost kind of like end up in the backseat on this D&D ride.
Right.
Other ways is like when you're hey, did you know you're the prince? You might not have wanted to be, but you definitely are, and I'm going to have a whole story arc divided around.
Well, and we've shared that story with one of my characters. Yeah. I started off, I wanted to, my character's story arc goal was he wanted to be a general. He wanted to lead the armies, and the GM, which we've talked about numerous times on the channel, he's like, oh, I love this character, and he changed the wish from, oh, you want to be a general, to let's see how we can put you on a throne. But that's not the guy I want to be.
It is now. So in a nutshell, that's helicopter GMing. So then that brings us to players just want to have fun. I mean, we're playing a game. Who doesn't want to have fun? Isn't that the whole point anyway?
But this is where the party stops caring about the story, and in some cases, what the GM is there for, and we're just going to do whatever we want. And they break theme, they break character. And a lot of times they'll move against what the world should allow, and the GM doesn't know how to stop that, how to rein that in, and put the realism back and give consequences for actions and that kind of stuff.
Now, sometimes this is caused by a helicopter GM and too much influence, and the players are kind of bucking the system.
Mm-hmm.
But other times it's just like bedlam. They just want to be crazy and do whatever the heck they feel like at the time.
And I feel that this kind of thing can happen to players who are veterans with novice DMs. And I mean, there are stories where
you're talking about me and Steve, aren't you? We totally did this. I have to admit it.
I was going to go there, but it was a situation where, you guys were all right.
Bored.
Okay,
we were bored.
you guys have to GM, and the only way to GM is to try. And, a lot of times, unless you're just spectacular, which I guarantee you I wasn't in the beginning.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about you, Ted. I was thinking about when we played our version of the Boulder Shoulder Brothers before they existed. The
Well,
Dwarven brothers.
there were a number of times that I think that that could have situation come up, and I wasn't highlighting anything specific. I was just remembering concepts from our early days.
Basically, if you've been a new GM at some point, unless your players were really nice to you in the beginning, this has happened to you.
So this is one of those problem areas where you can break the game in spectrums, right? It could be like a culmination of mild antics of the whole group, right? Which kind of like lead to this derailment of the game itself, or it could just be one or two really obnoxious players that that steal the fun from everybody else. And really, that's what this is about. This is about either the group or members of the group stealing the fun from the whole table. Even if all the players are in it and the DM is not having fun, well, it's still unfair because you've stolen the fun from somebody.
Right.
And we're here to play this game, and it should be cooperative, and everyone should kind of agree on the game that's being played. So players just want to have fun, has to include the GM as well. The next one, our group has been a victim of so many times, and that is Wandering Monster Syndrome, right? And this is where we just kind of lose interest in the campaign, whether it's the GM, whether it's the players, and we just decide to do something else. And Ted has often spoken of the many broken campaigns we've left in our wake.
I do have I have not made the list, or have not touched the list in a long time, but at one point in time I did have a list of all the different stuff that was done that was left out there, hanging on potential plot cusps of what's going to happen next. And it's like, but I like those characters, or I like this thing. And a lot of it is, I think, to do with the fact that we used to run every single week, and it was the same GM until his story was done. We didn't have this format that we use now, where every GM runs once a month, and we have multiple stories that are going on. There's good and bad to both sides, but it forced the issue of burnout on the DM, and it's like, look, I just want a break. And every time there's a break, that story hangs out there.
It remains broken.
And it remains broken because players or people are more interested in this new thing rather than going back to that old story until those stories come up again, and the GM's like, well, I don't know. And then before the conversation gets finished, you just continue on, and those things just kind of hang out there.
Yeah.
Hey, Nate, did you hear what he said about GMs running their stories until they're finished? I found that part rather funny myself.
Running till they finished. How many have we gotten finished?
None. I don't think we've ever finished anything.
We have one game at our group that we finished a story, but the players finished the story. Ryan's game.
Yeah, but even that game was kind of like abruptly ended. But yes.
Yeah.
So, but going with that, there is a lot of reasons for this to happen. It can be in game, it can be out of game as well.
Yeah, like Ted was saying with the GM burnout, there's also where everybody just kind of like, well, what are we going to do next in this campaign? And I like Wandering Monster Syndrome. It's just like, well, let's just roll a random encounter and see what we're going to do next. It's kind of, you don't have any direction. It just kind of stagnates.
Right, and that actually can speak a lot to how we used to run our adventures, where there wasn't ever really an overarching theme to the game as we do now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when us as the players in Ted's game right now, with the Curse of Narcitus, we kind of know what we're going to do in the end, or what we're going to attempt to do in the end.
Right, and the same thing for my game as well. There's an end goal, where our previous campaigns were much more amorphous.
And there's something to be said for running that style of game, where the players have that open and I can do whatever I want. It's very MMO. It's very older style running, whereas having an overarching story where the players know that eventually this is where I'm going to go, it's very video gamey. It's very, okay, well, I know that once I complete this is retirement, this is end game, situations, and then the campaign's over. Yay!
I find a good DM can do both, though.
It is entirely true.
That's the challenge.
It is the challenge. So that brings us to Thunderdome Madness.
So Thunderdome Madness, can be like an individual
Well, this one's really bad. This one's really bad because this not only can this end games,
it can break up your out of game party.
It can it can break up friendships.
Now this is where there's party conflict. It could be one player versus another player. It could be a player versus a GM. It could be everybody that's just constantly arguing, and it's brought on over plots. It can be brought on over rules, and we've gotten numerous GM 911s where they've been like, look, we've spent an hour and a half arguing over rules, and the GM is in these situations the GM needs to step in and say, look, this is my ruling, I don't care what's in the book, this is what it is, move forward. After a minute or two, anything more than that, and like you're breaking things up in a way that's not easily reversible.
Yeah, then you have issues with the people bringing that into game through their characters and either taking certain actions that they probably wouldn't have taken.
Mm-hmm.
So this happens in several different ways. One is arguing in game, arguing out of game. It could be a conflict between two players, multiple players, multiple characters, single, couple characters. And we've even seen the tension ratchet so high as to physical violence at the table, or threats of physical violence at the table.
Yep.
So this is a tough one, and this one really just requires you guys to get together and talk it out. But this, of all the things that can go wrong with your game, I think this is actually one of the most devastating and worst ones because, again, not only can it end a campaign, it can actually end friendships, which is always bad.
Yeah, so you have to be careful and guide this one with soft hands, because like there is definitely a difference between having a role-playing argument and actually having an argument. So you have to be cautious with this one.
One is real, one is pretend. Sometimes it's tough for us as gamers to distinguish between the two, but you have to figure it out. So that leaves us to the last thing on our list.
Game Extremists.
And this.
So wait a minute, we're gonna fly like on the top of mountains, maybe in a desert. Well, extreme sounds really good, right?
While you're climbing, you have to roll it in a giant cube so you don't lose any off the side.
Actually, no, it's not anything like this. You've heard all of the different tropes of the type of gamers, and this is all of those things, any of those things, being pushed to 11, as the expression goes. So it's like, all right, the rules lawyer, as we talked about in the previous thing, where they're arguing to a crazy degree, where they're insisting that they're right, and nothing the GM says, nothing another player says, can push this into that, all right, it's either this or nothing. And the same thing can go with every single archetype of gaming trope.
Right, you have the min-maxers, you have min-maxers / power gamers. You have even the role player can be problematic at times. It's like any of these things in moderation can actually make the game flow and be more enjoyable for everyone. Mm-hmm. And having the variations of these things with different players can actually make for a better experience overall.
Well, real quick, your rules lawyer, they're going to break the game. They're going to break immersion to argue with the rules, because to them the rules are more important than the flow. Your role player, your thespian, if you will, they're gonna be a spotlight hog. They're gonna steal the show from everyone else, and every time there's role playing, they feel they need to be involved and they need to do it.
And that can devolve into Thunderdome Madness as well. If you're like, well, my character would absolutely do this, and you guys are all against it, so I'm either going to fight you to the death or leave, and that's going to break up what's going on with the story. So that's like taking it to an extreme where you don't kind of say, like, there's metagaming involved in the idea that sometimes you just say, well, maybe my character would act this way, but I'm going to tone it down just a little bit so we can actually play the game for the next hour instead of devolve into madness.
That's a good point. The metagamer, that is another one, can absolutely break the game. But if you use it the way you just mentioned it, it actually makes the game flow, right? If they could only use their powers for good. And that goes with all of them. The power gamer or min-maxer, if you will, he's going to make the other characters feel useless when it comes to doing particular tasks because he's all about those things.
Or like it might not be that they're they're overshadowing. They could be directly insulting other players at the table, be like, well, you didn't make your character right, and taking that concept to an extreme was like, well, if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, your fun is wrong.
But the benefit for them is when the GM is laying a beat down on all of you in an encounter, sometimes the power game is the only way you get out.
he's your Obi-Wan.
It's like, oh, please kill that thing that's murdering everyone.
Well, that's where it's in moderation. It's when you take it to the extreme that it's like, well, not only does he have to have his, everybody's got
to be spec'd out, or we're not having the maximum amount of fun.
So the question is, guys, what are the things that break your D&D games? We got a place for that. It's called the comments. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.